Hi there. I'm Chris Africa, and I am a senior project manager with FFW agency. And today we're going to talk to you about how you can make your website redesign as painless as possible. We can't completely eliminate the pain, unfortunately, but there are things that you can do. I am going to turn it over to Rich, who is the star of the show here with the smiletrain.org website. And Rich can tell us about himself and Smile Train.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Cherboga. I am the project manager of web development at Smile Train. As you can read here, we are a cleft organization that is worldwide. We are one of the few that we do sustainable models. So we help teach our doctors how to perform surgery so that we are not mission driven. And you can learn more about us at smiletrain.org, which was beautifully created by our partners here at FFW.
All right, great. So just so you know, we do have some additional information, bios and things like that at the end of this presentation. And if you download it later, you can have all that information right at your fingertips. Right now, we're going to jump into what are you afraid of? Because website redesign is hard. I won't lie to you. It is a difficult process, and we just want to talk to you a little bit about how to make it easier. So some common fears: not enough time or expertise, maybe not even enough money, technical debt, all those skeletons in the closet. You might be worried about your difficult stakeholders and having to shepherd them through this process. So we can't take care of everything today, but I would say that a lot of the things you're afraid of we can kind of bring those more down to size in discovery. Rich, what else were you afraid of when you were looking at a website redesign?
There's a couple, these are definitely ones that we were afraid of. One of the bigger pieces for us was the amount of content that we had on our previous version, and how to strategically make the decision of what we were going to move over. And I think that was one of our biggest fears of saying, how much of our current content do we move over, and what is the purpose and plan and goal of what we're going to move over? So for us, I think that was one of the bigger pieces. And definitely, I don't want to say difficult stakeholders, but we have a vast array of functions that take care of their own sections. So we wanted them to feel that they had a voice in us creating a new environment specifically for each function, and having everything kind of be orchestrated and feel like it's one bigger piece with one voice moving forward as a company.
All right. So, as Rich was saying, they had a number of different functions, and so you might be kind of wondering, like, who would be included in a discovery? Because making it easier kind of starts with that discovery piece. It starts with like I said, bringing it down to size, and inclusive discovery is a piece of it. It sounds like, including a whole bunch of people might make it bigger. It might make it harder. If you follow a good process, it actually can make it a little bit easier. Let's see. So who to include? Look at this list. It is a huge list. It's like everybody. It's like the people who pay, the people who use the site, anyone basically who might be touching the site for some reason. Rich, I see you have some people listed here. I'm not going to read this whole list, but did you have any other comments not on this list?
No, I think that that is a big scare. At least it was for me personally, right? With I come from a background of people saying it would be cool if dot dot dot, right? And that really scared me because that really opens the door to a lot of niche items that people want based on the way that their perception is of how something's supposed to work. And I think that from the beginning, FFW did a really fantastic job in easing my fears of having these bigger meetings with a lot of different stakeholders, because the questions that they were asking and the way that from our side we were responding and kind of working back and forth in tandem really facilitated kind of the ease through each individual piece of the process. So I would say that from me having those scares to like seeing how everything was working, it really eased that into kind of just having us all kind of in concert moving forward without having that thought in the back of your head of like everyone's going to ask for something and this is going to turn from A to Z really fast.
Yeah, and I remember when we had that conversation, Rich, like we were telling you here are the kind of categories of people we see. Who from your organization do you want to put in those categories? And we were thinking, like 10 or 15 people in each category. And you were like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if we should have everybody. But then as we started sort of having these meetings and you saw how it was running, it made it a little more obvious how they fit in.
Absolutely, yeah. And I will say that at the end of the whole process and launching, the functions were really thankful that they had a voice in the whole entire process because they felt like they were inclusive in something that they are also proud of, right? As opposed to like having
That's right.
these weird type of silos going on. Everyone now has an invested interest in moving forward because their voice was heard. So I think that was fantastic. I can't say enough about it.
All right. So I made a top 10 reasons to be inclusive in pictures. And I just want to kind of take you through those. The first reason here is that you bring in everybody's ideas. It makes it really obvious what the bad ones are. The bad ones stand out. You can kind of weed them out and not proceed with them. But you might also find out that a bad idea or something you thought was bad might actually be a good idea and something that you need. So you can find, a lot of great ideas on perspectives. One of the things that that you think is a bad idea might just turn out to be like a new perspective. So these are all the Grand Canyon. We've seen tons of pictures of the Grand Canyon. They're all over the place, but not a lot of them really look like this. And this is just like a beautiful new perspective on a beautiful place. Rich, did we find some ideas that we thought, do we have any examples to speak to this? I don't know if we talked about this one particular.
I would say for us, it was the resource section, where initially everything was placed in different pieces, and you guys took this idea of having more of a strategy behind it and having kind of a resource center while still allowing us to keep the resources independent on different paragraph types within the website. So as a whole, someone can go into our resource center and find any resource that they're trying to at least find based on filters or searching and things of that nature. So even if you didn't know what section a resource should be on or would be on, this allowed a user, or still allows users obviously, to find a resource that they may need. I think that was
Okay.
one of the big ones for me at least. Noting how much resources we have, whether it's PDFs, Excels, Word docs, even external links. This is a fantastic way to kind of regroup and think about it in more of a strategic.
Okay, great. Great example. All right, so even an idea that seems like a great idea is going to probably need some iteration. You can use your discovery to kind of refine that idea and bring it out a little more. And I think that's what we did with the resources as well. And then here's the human factor, right? You're going to generate a lot of excitement among people who are just really happy to see a new website redesign. You're going to be able to quell the fears of people who are a little worried about it, who don't know what's going to happen. And then in some cases, you're just going to be a good listener. Discoveries are all about listening and hearing people, and just, everything doesn't always have to happen and become a thing that's built on the website. Sometimes people just want to know that you've heard their needs, and then they listen to everybody's needs, and it helps them understand how they fit in. All right. Blank screen. All right. So some people are probably going to be wondering what is happening behind door number 13. This is another reason to have an inclusive discovery, is to kind of bring people in and let them have some transparency into what you're doing. Because some people, there's people who have fears, they might even be negative about a website redesign until they get the opportunity to see that you're doing great things. Rich, I don't know if you had any experience with that. It seemed like everybody on your side was like just on the excited scale, just very happy about a website redesign.
Yeah, I think so. I think if we're talking about fears, I don't think it was from like a front end look and feel perspective. It was more of how our content managers were going to be able to go from the current environment to the new environment and fix what they were perceived as issues for them, and trying to create a better and more scalable environment for them to create content easier. And I think we did really well in easing their minds when it came to that. Once they saw the back end and how easy it was, as opposed to like our old environment. I think that's probably the biggest fears. Really was just content management.
Yeah, you guys you have a lot of awesome content. Okay, so not pictured, but probably the most important reason of all is to just make sure you get all those requirements. Someone who you're not thinking about every day, someone has a requirement that might be important to more than one person, something we need to think about. Okay, now we're going to hop over to the next thing that's going to make your life easier, which is database decision making. And I remember when one of the first things that Rich told us is we have to look at the data. And I'm going to let Rich talk to that a little bit.
Sure.
About making database decisions.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger pieces for us was having an abundance of content and data that sat on our old environment, and trying to figure out were we just going to migrate it as a whole and then kind of filter it later, or how do we focus on kind of just moving over what data indicated we should move over, right? So one of the initial pieces that we were having discussions around was this thought of, let's separate emotion from the content. So we ran a bunch of Google Analytics numbers to determine what pages we wanted to move over first. So we set a certain threshold for, let's say, our blog section, which we call our stories. So we said, hey, we're going to look at the data between the last 3 years, and based on this set threshold that everyone decided on, those are the pieces we're going to kind of migrate over first. Once we launch, then we will kind of take a look at what people were emotionally connected to, and then look at how we're going to process that workflow and move those over. And I think that kind of created this environment that we're still doing now with, just moving to our next website launch, is really data-driven first and separating that emotional connection. Like, you may have a writer that wrote a story that, let's be honest, may have 100 page views in the last 3 years, but they love it because they're emotionally connected to that piece. Where from our perspective on the website, we were just trying to make sure that we covered our bases and not have this super fluctuating 404, scope creep that would come from after launch and not moving those pieces over.
Okay. So, and if I, could comment, your website looks fantastic. It looks, you have a lot of great content. It seems like you made the right choices. So, it can help you get a lot of sites really just kind of get hung up in migration near the end. Like, we've got to get everything. And what you did, which was actually prioritization, helped you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that it also takes, your other functions, like teamwork, right? To understand that it's not personal, right? We're just trying to launch a website that makes the most sense. And I think that when we came with this concept of like being data driven first, they were really open to it. And that helps a lot. Like, if they understand the process and why we're doing it, I think it helps, as opposed to like people really clinging on to like the emotional connection.
I agree. Okay, I think we have like 2 more minutes, so I'm going to kind of speed through the mission and goals. But I do want to say that we have a couple of demos that we can give. After our time ends, we'll hop over to the FFW booth, and we will be able to give a demo and maybe do some Q&A over there. But just speaking a little bit to teamwork, that really comes out a lot in discovery as well. It's where we learn about the mission and goals of the organization. And I feel like, Rich, like, our teams were like really well aligned as a result of discovery, and also because you have an awesome mission.
Thank you. I mean, I think that we meshed really well from the beginning. I think that we spoke the same techie language, but we're also able to address the business side so that they understood. Regardless if they were talking to me or regardless if they were talking to you or someone on your team, I think we did a fantastic job in communication. And I think that's a bigger piece of, the puzzle that people don't really address.
All right. So, am I right in thinking we're pretty much out of time here, but I do have bonus demos. If you want to see them, we're going to look at Rich's site in the back end, and you can hop over to the FFW booth. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Have a great day.